Hey guys, Clint Coons here, and in this video, I want to talk about why anonymity is probably one of your best forms of protection when it comes to lawsuits. Okay, let's get started. So here's the thing. A lot of people when it comes to putting together asset protection strategies just don't grasp the benefit of using tools that reduce your overall risk exposure through anonymity planning. And what I mean by that is not putting your name on assets. So when you hold title to certain types of assets, if there's an opportunity for you to get your name off there and use some other entity or some form of title holding, then what you're doing is you're reducing your footprint. And that footprint is so important when it comes to attorneys who are wondering, hey, do I take on client A or do I take on client B? Well, if client B, the person that injured them, has very deep pockets, that's where I want to put my interest. Whereas if I'm dealing with an individual, when I perform an asset search and I don't see any assets in their name, I think, well, there's no payday there. Or if there is, I'm not going to spend a lot of time because what I'm going to do is end up just settling for their policy limits or trying to extract as much money as I can from the insurance company. And that's what anonymity planning, if set up right, can do for you, how it can benefit you. It's not asset protection, meaning if you get sued and they get a judgment against you, they're going to pull back the curtain. They're going to see who's behind all of this. The whole idea with anonymity planning is to put you in a position so that if somebody's considering suing you, they're not going to pursue it very aggressively because they don't know what you have or the fact that you even own the asset. One of the terms we like to use is you can't sue what you can't see. And that's what a planning can do for you. So what do you want to do then if you're looking to create anonymity? How do you go about owning certain types of assets anonymously? Well, it's really quite simple if you understand the concepts of how business entities are set up. So for example, if I'm going to set up a business, if I want to set up an LLC and I want it to be anonymous and I'm running this business in, let's say the state is Texas. So if I could set up a Texas LLC, just go ahead and set one up. But the problem is if I set up that Texas LLC, then my name's going to be all over it. I may be listed as the organizer. I might be listed as a registered agent. If I made that mistake, I'm going to be listed as a manager of that limited liability company. In some states, I'd even be listed as the member. So check, check, check. Clint's all over it. You want to know who's involved in this limited liability company? All you got to do is pull up the Secretary of State's website and you get my information. You can find out where I live from there. It makes it real easy to sue and then look at everything else that I own. Whereas, consider this. You have another investor, business owner that wants to create a business. They don't start with a Texas LLC. Instead, they've watched some of my videos and they decide to start with a Wyoming limited liability company. So they set this entity up first. And the reason they do that is they choose a state that doesn't collect any information. Now, Wyoming, Delaware, several states you can set up entities like this, where when you set it up, it doesn't ask who is the manager, who is the member of the LLC. They don't ask for that, so it doesn't get disclosed anywhere. So you can own this LLC and no one's going to know it. Now, the key here is that, again, you can't set this up on your own. You have to use a third party because they will ask who is the manager of this entity or who is the organizer. That will have to be disclosed. And if you're filling out the paperwork, that's going to be you. So you set this one up first. Once you get this entity set up, then you create this entity up here. Again, you're going to have to use a third party to do this because they have to submit the paperwork on your behalf. But this LLC points to the Wyoming LLC. Wyoming LLC points to anonymity. So if somebody was looking at this business and they say, well, who owns it? Who can I drag into this lawsuit to squeeze them, to get them to capitulate to my demands? Well, it's going to be very hard to figure out where that's going. And that's really what we're driving towards here with anonymity planning. Now, you can take this and you can use this same strategy for different types of assets. For example, my personal residence. If I wanted anonymity for my personal residence, I'm not going to use an LLC. I'll create a land trust. All right, so I'm going to use a land trust for my personal residence. And to set this up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a nominee trustee. All right, here. So I'll set up a nominee trustee, which means it's someone other than me. So on title, when the property that's deeded out of my name into this trust, it's going to go to someone else's name. It'll say Clint Coons is trustee of the 1465 trust. That's how title would be taken. They're no longer going to see the individuals, Juan and Maria, as the owners because they were in the chain of title, but they're not listed as a current owner. Now, in reality, Your nominee trustee doesn't have any control over the property. They resign their position. They're out of there. You're the one in control. But to outside parties, they don't see this. So check. Your house is protected. Check. Your business is taken out of your name. If you have real estate investments, you do the exact same thing with the LLCs. Hold them in separate LLCs and they all point down to here. Your vehicles, if you don't want them to know that you drive a fancy vehicle, you own an expensive car, maybe you set up what's called a personal property trust for your vehicles, and you do the same thing like I'm talking about here, and you put your vehicle into a personal property trust. So again, your name is taken off title to that asset. So when we're thinking about planning, anonymity is really, really important. And I tell people this all the time, that many lawsuits can be avoided if the individual who was the eventual defendant had set themselves up in a way that when the plaintiff went and looked, they didn't see any assets worth going after, so they didn't want to take the time. All it matters is whether or not you wanted to invest the effort into protecting your own assets from using these types of strategies. And having been practicing for 23 years, I can tell you they do work. I've had plenty of clients that have been involved in potential litigation to walk away with only having to settle for their policy limits. And that's what we want to do. Insurance pays, but they don't want to come after us because they can't find any assets, or they make the assumption that we don't have the assets. I've seen the opposite happen, where their presumption is they're deep pocket defendants, like your medical doctor. They run your name, they see all the assets you own, and that physician now is involved in a hairy case and they're having to come out of pocket. The choice is yours. You want to take steps now to protect your assets, look at an anonymity structure, go into the show notes. You can set up a free strategy session with our firm, and we can analyze your situation and show you what we could do to get your name off title to your assets. Take care.